Okay, so geometry. So this is basic geometry. So let's have a look at two straight lines. Now, if two straight lines cross one another, there is a rule, and we say, or it's stated, that opposite angles are always equal. So, for example, if this angle was 60 degrees, this angle, because it's directly opposite, will also be 60 degrees. Now also this angle and this angle will also be equal. Okay, they won't be 60 degrees, but they will be equal. Now a straight line has an angle. This comes as a surprise to some people, but a straight line has an angle. So a straight line has an angle of 180 degrees. So if I want to know what this angle here is, okay, this 60 degrees is resting on this line, so it must be 180 less the 60. So this will be 120 degrees, because 120 plus 60 gives me my straight line of 180. Now, because these angles are opposite one another, this also would be 120 degrees. Okay. Now you can check this, because if I was to put a compass point here and draw a circle, my circle would be 360 degrees. So if I add up these two angles, that's 240, plus this angle, that's 300, plus this angle, 360 degrees. Okay. So when we have opposite angles, in the textbooks you'll see it written as vertically opposite. Okay, I'm just writing this out very quickly. Okay. Now the fact that that angle and that angle aren't vertical, it doesn't matter, they're still vertically opposite. Okay. Now, if we have two parallel lines, now if lines are parallel, they'll have arrows pointing in the same direction to denote that they're parallel. Okay. Now, if we ignore this top line for the moment and we just deal with this part, okay, again, let's say that this is 40 degrees. Okay. Now I know that opposite angles are equal, so this must be 40 degrees. Now I know a straight line is 180, so if I want to find this angle, it's on a straight line, so 180 less the 40 would be 140 degrees. Now because opposite angles are equal, this also will be 140 degrees. Okay, which also proves that this line is straight, because 140 plus 40 is 180 degrees, which is the straight line. So we can see if we're given one angle here, it's very easy to find out what the remaining angles are. Now because these lines are parallel and this line has cut through both lines, whatever is happening down here will happen here. Everything here will be the same here. So this angle will be 40, this angle will be 140, this angle will be 40, and this angle be 140. So whatever's happening here happens here, because these two lines are parallel. Okay? So even if I was only given one angle, say I was just given this angle of 140 degrees, we've seen how simple it is to find the remaining angles. And if they said, well, what were the angles up here? It would just be a repetition. It would just repeat. So consequently, we can find there are 8 angles there, but with just one angle we can find all 8 angles. Okay. So I'm sure you're all thinking, oh, well, it can't be that easy. Okay. Trust me, it really can be that easy. Okay. Maths is as complicated as you want to make it. Now, I've taken out all the 140 degrees and I've left just the 40 degrees. Okay. Now, here it's 40 degrees. If we jump the line and we go over to here, we get 40 degrees. If we jump the line again, we get 40 degrees. If we jump the line again, we get 40 degrees. Okay, so what's happening is this angle is alternating. Yeah, it's to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, and it doesn't matter how many parallel lines I put in, it will keep jumping left and right. Okay, so if, for example, they said, okay, this angle is 40 degrees, find angle X. Now we know that this angle and this angle are identical, so we could say X equals 40 degrees. Now, more often than not, they'll say Y. Y is this angle, whatever you say it is. As I said, these angles alternate. So they're just called alternate angles. Okay? They are just alternate angles. So if this is 40, this will be 40. Okay? So these terms that I'm giving you, you will need to remember. Okay? Now if they said, for example, what is the angle of Y, well, we could say again that they're opposite, so we could say that Y equals 40 degrees, and we would say that they are vertically opposite. Okay, so alternate angles jump the line. Okay, vertically opposite means that they are literally just that, they are just opposite one another and they are equal. Okay, so let's keep that one. Let's take this out and let's take this out. So we have X and X. Okay, now if they said under these circumstances, what is angle X? Well, we could say, well, whatever happens up here happens down here. Okay, but we've got to be a bit more mathematical in our language. But what we can say is that whatever happens here corresponds with whatever happens down here. So this angle and this angle correspond with one another. So I could say then that x equals 40 degrees because they are corresponding angles. Okay, so if this was y, this also would be y, because this angle corresponds with this angle. Okay, so these are corresponding angles. So we have alternate angles, which is if the angle jumps over the line. If something is repeated, like here, then they are corresponding angles. If the angles are opposite one another, we just say that they're vertically opposite. Okay? Now, there is just one other one. Now, if I took this angle here, I'll call that y because that's y. This angle and this angle are what we call supplementary angles. Okay, they are supplementary. And supplementary angles always add up. My handwriting's terrible, sorry. Add up to 180 degrees. So angle x plus angle y equals 180 degrees. Okay, now I'll just pause this for a second. Okay, so I'm back with you again. I've just cleaned up the screen. Now, we were talking about supplementary angles. Now, I'll just give you an explanation of why this is. Okay, now if we have a square or a rectangle, we know that each angle is 90 degrees. Yeah. So for lots of 90, I know that the internal angles add up to 360 degrees. Now, if I was to put some sort of force on this corner, okay, the shape will distort. Okay, and we'll get this diamond shape. Now, you cannot lose angles. The inside of this is still 360 degrees, but what's happened is this has got smaller and this has got larger to compensate. Okay, so we cannot lose angles by distorting shapes. The interior angles will still be 360 degrees. So even if I push this to almost flat, this angle down here will be very, very tiny, but the angle up here will be very, very large to compensate. Okay, and that's all that's happened here, is a vertical line has been pushed over. So consequently, this angle and this angle will add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so supplementary angles always equal 180 degrees. I hope that explanation helps. Okay, because this also doesn't correspond with this, and it's not alternate, it's not jump the line. So these are the terms that you need to know. You need to know alternate angles. These are angles that jump the line. Supplementary angles are these internal angles here. Corresponding angles are whatever happens here and happens here, then this corresponds with this. Equally, if this happens here and this happens here, they're corresponding. Vertically opposite angles, if this angle is x, this angle will be x. If this angle is y, this angle will be y. And a straight line is 180 degrees. Okay? I hope that helps. Usually in the exam you will get something along these lines. Finding the angle, I'm sure you can do in your sleep, but they will inevitably ask why is your answer as it is. So you need to remember these terms. Okay? So I'll stop here and I'll move on to the next part of geometry.